Welcome to the Football Journeys podcast with me, Matt Hemsworth.
And me, Fraser Franks.
Now, on today's episode, we've got a really good friend of our firm, our business, and an old teammate of Fraser's. Both of them played for Brentford, though Karleigh played 185 more games than Fraser did. Both of them also missed a playoff final for Wimbledon through injury, but they both got their hands on the trophy. All references to John Terry are completely unfair, of course. But more important than that, they've both become excellent men with so much wisdom to share about their experience of the highs and the lows of the Football League and the complete loss of identity that comes with retirement. Carly's experience with the Brentford Women team has given so much to the female setup at the club that he loves, but I know that what he will tell us in this podcast is that it gave so much to him as well. So, welcome to the podcast, Karleigh Osborne.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Fraser. How are you both?
Yeah, we're really, really,
Good,
really
good.
good. We were recording this on a sweltering hot day, the morning after I went to see Queen Bee Beyonce at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So we just had a little chat about that, about how I am a new convert to Queen Bee. And actually, that's going to fit quite nicely because we're going to talk a lot about women, elite women, women in football, and what the experience of working with women in football has given us. So the fact that we've had the ultimate woman
Yeah.
to chat about in the morning is really, really important. But let's not talk about Beyonce because I feel as though I can talk about her a lot. Let's talk about you to start off with, Karleigh. One thing we always like to do right at the beginning of the episode is take you back to being a kid. And it's one thing that Fraser, as a performance coach, talks to a lot of his clients about that we need to try and do is take you back to being a kid
Yeah.
because they're the moments when we're at our most authentic. And I know you've spoken about your childhood and both of there are loads of comparables between you two, and I hope that'll open up a lot of really good conversations. You both had really difficult childhoods. You had a difficult childhood, and you also had come back to Queen Bee again, really great female role models, but you were missing a male role model. But you found football, or football found you. So can you talk to us a little bit about those early days and about the outlet that football was?
Yeah, 100%. So I think the biggest thing for me when we talk about childhood, it's funny because obviously me and Fraser are doing now a similar role that we transitioned into in terms of sort of mindset coaching and performance coaching. And the I watched something of Fraser's where he was talking about taking people back to their childhood. And it was one of the things that I never really thought about because actually my early childhood, because of the difficulties within it, I actually kind of forgot about it. It's almost like it's been pushed to the side. So I've actually spent a fair bit of time trying to get back to that and trying to remember and understand what I actually was as a kid and kind of who I wanted to be and the magic of being a kid, which it's been a tough journey, but it's been a really refreshing one as well. And I feel like I'm actually connecting back to myself, which also then now helps me in a position to propel myself forward in a better way and actually have greater understanding. And you
Wow. Is
never,
that doing it by yourself, or you doing that with someone, Carly?
at the moment, I'm doing it by myself, but I'm actually going to go through some therapy with it and stuff like that as well, because I kind of want to really delve
Hmm.
deep within it and sort of truly understand myself. So it's quite a challenge.
Yeah.
Um, football's a really good one for this because you're taught that you have to take accountability while at the same time trying to do everything you possibly can to not be seen and protect yourself. And because ultimately, if you're, especially at the I think it's maybe different a bit now, but when I was definitely coming through, and Fraser, obviously we're a similar age, if you was seen as someone who maybe had too much to say or had too much of a personality within sort of the changing room or towards the manager and staff, it could be looked at in a bad way.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a really strange place to sit where you need to be noticed enough so the manager picks you all the time, but making sure that you're not noticed for the wrong thing because that could be so
Hmm.
detrimental to your career. And you're constantly trying to juggle between both of those. Um,
Hmm.
so now, kind of going on this journey a bit more sort of self discovery, um, it's allowing me to open up and understand the person that I actually am and why I am that person and
Hmm.
why I want to do the things that I want to do.
It's a
There's a
great point because you're trying to. Sorry, Matt. You're you're almost like, what do they need? What do they want
Mm,
me to be? And I'll try and fit myself. If that means that I'm gonna get to here, I'll
yeah,
be what they need me to be. You sure?
100%.
Hmm.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, Matt. And I think that's why we're probably so good at going into any room and understanding what it looks like, understanding what the demographic of people are and what they might need or what they need us to be. Do they need us to be really showy because we're the footballers coming and they want us to be
Mm.
the centerpiece, or do we need to fade into the background? And I think that's a skill that's developed because that's what we've done for our career. That's who we've had to be.
There's
Mm.
a brilliant clip of you chatting to the under 18s boys at Brentford about your experience of managing the Brentford women's team.
Yeah,
And I'm conscious we'll have no structure on this because there's loads of things that we all feel strongly about. We'll end up talking about.
yeah,
And you talk about your experience there and that false perception. Actually, I'm going to read you a quick quote from the Northern Ireland women's manager in 2022, which quite rightly got a massive backlash. He said, "I'm sure you'll have noticed if you go through patterns when a team conceded goals." They conceded a second one in a very, very short period of time, right through the whole spectrum of the women's game, because girls and women are more emotional than men. I couldn't disagree with a statement more because, as you explained to the boys at the under 18s, women are better at expressing their emotions and talking about how they feel. And it was great when you were talking to the under 18s boys. You said it was one of the real challenges you found, which helped you grow as a coach and as a human being, was you were having conversations about how the people working under you felt. And
yeah,
I think you also said in that you never once went to a manager. And our friend Brian McDermott said this. He once, I don't know how old he said he was, Fraser, about 10 or 11 at QPR. He went to a coach, said, "I'm not feeling great today." And the coach said, well, you need to. And it was the last time he ever reached out for help until he was in his 50s, I think.
yeah,
And that is, I mean, it is problematic in any environment, particularly in the sports environment, which is so intense as well. I mean, Fraser was talking at a builder's yard the other day, surrounded by a vast majority of people there are men, and
yeah,
we just don't talk about it. And I am trying to. I've got two best mates who I've known since we were kids, and yeah, I think we do actually. I think we're getting there quite well. But if one of us is down, struggling, stressed at work, we talk about it. I guarantee 5 years ago we wouldn't have done.
yeah. It's getting better, and that is one of the greatest things that I've kind of taken from working with the women's team, because it opened me up as a human being. Um, Football is naturally, the environment that myself and Fraser kind of grew up in. It's a very male dominated sport. It's very ego driven. It's constant competition, constant judgment. Um, and the moment that you show any sort of weakness is the moment that you feel your career could stop, because you can't be trusted anymore. You can't be relied on, and you're constantly just trying to navigate that from an early age. And it's even earlier now. Like, I've got my own football academy, and kids are going through this at 8 and 9 years old. Um, and we disguise some of it as, like, it's just football. We just want them to have fun and whatnot. But kids at 6, 7, say, are going into pre-academies, and already it's the case of, you need to be pushing to get a contract at a club so that you can then go and have a career. And I'm like, there's so many years that kids are going to lose out on just being a kid,
Mm.
just enjoying running on the pitch and just playing. Whether you win 10-0, whether you lose 10-0, you're just happy you was out there with a ball, enjoying the game and playing it.
Mm.
And I think that, like, kids experience that so much earlier now, and I see it, like, the pressure that's on them is immense. But going back to, like, my original sort of point with the women's team, I'd gone from playing football with a male dominated sport where I didn't really show any emotion, couldn't show weakness, all that kind of stuff, and then going into an environment where I had to be the exact opposite, or the complete opposite, sorry, and then had to be really open, had to be really vulnerable, had to be really understanding, had to take time, had to listen, and be caring. And that was a hard thing to do, because it wasn't the norm for me. Not that I wasn't caring and things like that, but in that type of environment, it was always a, just suck it up and get on with it. Like, that's what it is. Deal with it or don't play. And it wasn't the same for the girls, especially at the level, because ultimately they're amateurs. They was a grassroots, so they're playing the game because they love it, not because it's their job or because
Mm.
it's what makes them a living. So for me, that growth over those sort of 7, 8 years has been, yeah, one that I'm forever thankful for, because it's allowed me to become a better person.
And did you see them playing amateur football and think you don't realise how lucky you are? And what I mean by that is there are so many people who sit and watch football on the telly or go to the stadiums and would look at lads like you and then the lads up at the ultimate top and think, I wish I could be them, wish I could play professional football. That's the ultimate job. But the fact is, the ones that play it for fun are the winners. And I genuinely feel that I still play at the age of 46 on a Sunday night, and I love it still. And I think sometimes Fraser sort of chuckles at what the hell are you doing? That's a job. Why are you doing that on a Sunday? Why would you choose to
Yeah,
do that? And I think we as the amateur footballers are the lucky ones because I think you said this a number of times, Fraser, is once it becomes your job, the joy gets sucked out of it.
yeah,
It can. Some people can keep it. It definitely goes up and down, and
yeah,
you can literally go from one week, it's the best thing in the world. If you're winning, you're in the team, you're at a club that you feel valued at. But then you could lose, you're out the squad, you're traveling away somewhere and you're running after the game. It's like it's it can be so up and down and so emotional, but like you say, like Carly said there, so emotional, but you can't show it because you get called into the manager's office on a Friday morning to be told you're not in the team for the Saturday. You then have to go out in front of all the boys and put that mask straight on. Because
yeah,
inside you're thinking, I'm devastated, I want to play, I've got family coming, I've got this, but you can't go out and show it. And then obviously when we speak to young lads now, it's like it's almost where the ego pops up to try and protect us. It's like, right, do I go out here to the boys and be the joker and go, I don't care, or do I sulk in training or toss it off? And you're just someone that's hurting inside, but you don't know how to react afterwards. But it's probably why it leads, people like Carly to do the work he's doing now, because I think often you look for maybe what you needed at times when you were younger. And if you can be that for somebody else, you know how it feels on both ends.
Yeah. Um, Anger was something you've spoken about. I thought it was really interesting because we were talking about emotions. And one of the reasons I very much disagree with that statement from the Northern Ireland, former Northern Ireland Women's manager, is he says that women are more emotional than men. I think the opposite is true. From my experience, men are more emotional than women. We express our emotions a lot differently. And there are two main emotions that cause trouble for men, lust and
yeah,
anger.
yeah,
And all you need to do is get in a car to realize that. The way that men behave on the roads is embarrassing. If someone cuts you up, you've got to go and chase them down the road and get your sense of justice. It's absolute bullshit. But men do it all the time, and it frustrates the hell out of me. You had a lot of anger in you as a kid, but anger doesn't necessarily have to be a terrible thing. It needs to be cultivated and controlled. And in a way, almost accidentally, that's what happened in your early years. So let's start talking about your playing
yeah,
career.
yeah,
So you had a lot of anger and aggression within you, which meant that 16, I presume you'd grown pretty. I think you boys are both 6 foot 2. I'm really glad we're doing this on Zoom because I'd just be intimidated by the pair of you. So I presume you were already a big lad by the age of 16, but
yeah,
that anger and aggression gave you an advantage in those early years. But then I think I'm right in saying that you made your debut about a year later and you got sent off 3 times. So that was when it counted against you and you lost a bit of control of it.
yeah. It's a funny one. So I was like, because of my childhood and my early childhood and kind of things that I'd been through. I think I'd so when I was younger, I was really quiet, really recluse, sort of very much on my own. Didn't really kind of want to step out of place, anything like that. Got to a teenager and then completely flipped, and that was one of the things that helped me kind of navigate my way through football in the early years. But then, as you said, there we got to 16, was angry, but was able to channel it really, really well into football. Um, but then when I turned pro, my first season, I got sent off 3 times because I was petulant, because I didn't have any emotional control. Something would happen that I didn't agree with, and I'd lash out. Um, and I think the bit that probably maybe started that, when I look back, is at the time when the anger was really helpful for me. It's because I was chasing becoming a pro and I wasn't willing to risk anything to take that away. So for whatever reason, I was able to channel it in the right way and control it. And also, managers enjoyed that I wasn't scared to go into a tackle, and I was physical and I was strong. I was the centre half, so managers didn't mind that. But then I'd obviously signed my pro at that time. A year later, I signed my pro, started playing in my first year as a pro, and I suppose part of me, because I'd thought maybe that I'd got my pro and I'd made it subconsciously, then some of those the bad traits of me being not having the greatest emotional control was then able to creep out because I didn't necessarily understand the risks that come with it. And it wasn't until the manager pulled me in and said, if this continues to happen, you won't have a career because I can't trust you, I can't play you, and no manager will trust you and play you. So then it woke me up again, which I'm extremely fortunate for, because a lot of managers would just throw you to the wayside because they're like, I can't trust him and wouldn't care. But because the manager I had at the time also had been my youth team manager as well, Scott Fitzgerald. So he really helped me in that way. And I think that's what probably sort of saved me a bit. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have continued to kind of play at the level. My career may have gone down a different path.
And in football, it's obviously on the pitch, emotional control is really important for the reasons you said, but quite often off the pitch, emotional control becomes a massive issue for players, particularly, playing a sport that's so full of adrenaline. Fraser and I this season coming and be going into EFL clubs and talking about, well, we deem it healthy relationships and porn culture. We're talking about how terrible decisions are being made by a lot of men, a lot of young men particularly, and some young men in football. And that kind of inability control, and I mentioned those two things, lust and anger. Those are those two things that men really, really struggle with. And there's a great quote, which I need to work it out properly, but there's a quote from, I think it was a Greek philosopher, talked about having a man's sexuality is like being chained to a wild beast 24 hours a day. And you have to be able to control that wild beast. If you don't control it, then you can make some catastrophic decisions. I know it's something, Fraser, you've spoken about a lot, that there'll be a lot of men who've got beautiful wives and families and everything's perfect in their life, or so seems. But they end up in an environment where they make some absolutely catastrophic decisions which blow that all out of the water. And I think being in the intense environment, and it's not just in relation to relationships, but it may well be using substances like snus or too much or alcohol. Obviously, particularly in the lower leagues, was a big problem as well. I mean, I'm not asking you to tell us whether you struggled with any of those things, Karleigh, but you must have seen that around you as Fraser did in the lower leagues.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I did struggle when I was at Millwall. I struggled. I was drinking a lot because it wasn't going well. I'd gone from Brentford, where I'd been at for 8 years, felt really valued, loved it there. I was local, and then went to Millwall, where I was struggling to get in the team. Struggling to play, didn't like the environment too much, which was difficult. And that transition for me was really tough. And I started drinking heavily after training, was out all the time. And again, you're just trying to mask the pain and the emotions. And again, at that stage, although I was sort of 24 at that stage, 25, I didn't have any like emotional control. The only time you
still a kid, by the way, 24, 25.
Yeah,
Like we as older
young.
men will look at that now, but you're supposed to be a grown up when you're a footballer.
100%. You're still young, still learning. But it was, it was tough. And as I said, I think football had always been an escape. So it was where I could like sort of release and let go of the pain and all of that kind of stuff. So then I didn't have anywhere to put it. So you then look for another escape. And that can be dangerous. Like there's no kind of no ifs or buts about it. Like it is dangerous. And I think the one thing that I'm pleased about is I did have like a supportive wife who kind of gone through the battle with me. Supportive family as well, like who kind of helped me in some of those times. But the bit that I now understand is that your emotions are a navigation system for you. And most of our worst decisions come from a place of just pure emotion. But the emotions are there to help you steer towards what feels right, what doesn't feel right, where you might need to change direction and pivot. And I think it's trying to get an understanding and being comfortable to sit with an emotion so you can then make a more informed and logical decision after understanding it is the bit that we kind of miss. We go from whatever it is that's happened. So, for example, us at football, it would be we've not been picked or we've been dropped or whatever it might be, straight into I'm feeling really angry about it, then into a decision, rather than going, right, this is what's happened. This decision makes me feel this way. That's uncomfortable. Okay, why am I uncomfortable with that? what's something that can change this, or how can I use this feeling to propel me forward and do something different? And I think that's the bit that not enough people kind of understand or realize, and especially in sport, because as we know, it's competitive and it's 100 miles per hour.
Mm.
Um, let's. I want to go back to joy in football. Actually, I want to take you to a couple of moments
I
in
feel like
your.
we've hammered football, to be fair.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is why. This is my mindset. What I've done there, Carl, is I've sat with that emotion because I've started, and then I've thought, how can I address that emotion? And I can do that by looking at my notes and thinking there's a couple of lovely things that I want to talk about from your Brentford career. Look, Brentford's a club that Fraser and I both know. Fraser even more than me because he started his playing career there, and we've done a lot of work with that football club. We love that football club, and I know that you do too. And it's certainly reciprocated for you because you've been an incredible servant both as a player and a manager of the women's team. Um, I wanted to talk about Nigerian Premier League football strikers. Sorry, um, I'm sat in a Zoom room with two guys who have um, tamed them during an FA Cup match, shall we say? We've got Yakubu for you, Carleigh, and
Yeah.
Ian Nacho for you, Fraser. You both played FA Cup matches that you won. When you look at Brentford versus Everton, it looks like a Premier League fixture. It looks like Brentford are probably favourites because they're still doing so well at the moment. But in 2010, Brentford were a League One team. You come up against Everton and Yakubu, and you talk about strong physical players. Yakubu was fantastic, and I'm going to do you down there, Fraser. I don't think Ian Nacho is quite as big a lad as Yakubu, but you got man of the match when Newport County beat Leicester City as well. Those highs. I mean, I guess the lows come because the highs exist as well. By the way, but I
Yeah.
mean, can you talk us through? What those, and presume that was a game on the telly as well, was it? I mean, all the family are there. It's like trying to sort tickets for everyone.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was on the telly actually.
Oh, well, they got that wrong.
Yeah, I think I think they had no faith in us making it a decent game. To be fair, yeah, but those highs are amazing. Like that. Firstly, that experience of playing against the Premier League club at the time for me was incredible. Playing against the striker like Yakubu, where in my head I'm thinking, this is going to go one or two ways. I'm going to either come out a hero or an absolute villain because he's going to terrorize me for 90 minutes. And I remember the first header I went for, I remember running into him. And as I went to jump, he just checked into me. And I honestly, I lost breath. Like, it was like a complete wake up. So it was a really good experience. But those are the things that make the career amazing. And as Fraser kind of said earlier, for me, football, when it's going well, it is the greatest job in the world. For me, nothing beats it. But also, when it's not going well, it's a really tough place. But yeah, those are the games and the memories that we live for and we talk about now. And I'll see fans and they'll talk to me about it, and we'll be there for 5-10 minutes, just kind of reminiscing over that good time. And that's the stuff that we love. And ultimately, that's what we play football for. Because it's about the joy and the happiness that it can bring to someone's life. Like a single game, a single moment can create so much joy, so much happiness, and so much sort of positive memories for someone.
Mm.
And I think that's an amazing thing.
With Brentford, Carly,
Yeah.
when did you start thinking that they could become like a Premier League club? I only say it because we would have been there same time when we were like League Two, but not even a top League Two team. Like
Yeah.
fans going mad outside the ground when you're walking out, and
Yeah.
I think that was the year Terry Butcher was manager. So you'd have broke through
Yeah.
first that kind of year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was Jersey Road, and I saw Brentford, and we were there, we loved it, but
Yeah.
I saw Brentford as maximum like a top League Two, bottom kind of League One club. When
Yeah.
did you start seeing the change? Because I think you stayed there a couple of years after I left. When did you start
Yeah.
thinking these could go places? Because I even remember when Brentford got promoted to the Championship, I was like, how are Brentford in the Championship? It's mad. But
Yeah.
now obviously
Yeah.
seeing what they've become.
It's crazy actually. So when I left in 2011 and 12, I think, and then um you could see like the club had started to change by then. Things were becoming a bit more professional.
Mm.
And you felt like the club would move, and we was in League One at that time, and you felt like they'd challenge at the top of League One as that started to change. And and you felt like there was a club that is moving in direction. But I left then, and I remember they then reached the playoffs, lost in the playoff final year after, then got promoted to the champ, and then like kind of it was amazing. But you never really thought that they like the Prem would be so soon after. But from when they got in the champ, and there must have been a clear kind of contingency plan for break through that first sort of barrier, get to the champ, and then we're going to go bang. And the infrastructure of the club, the way they've kind of built it, and the good people they've got involved. Like there's some really, really good people there, some really clever people, but people that care, and people that really care about the club, the community, having an impact. And I think that's probably when I'd say I first felt like, yeah, do you know what? I can see the club going places. And again, I was then back involved that sort of late championship season as they started to reach the playoffs and kind of move up and get promoted. And I just remember feeling like at no point did I ever feel like, you know what, I think Brentford are going to be like a one season Prem club and come down. Like I genuinely felt they were going to go on and kind of establish themselves as a proper Premier League club. And they're going into their 5th year in the Prem, it was an incredible thing. And it feels like for me that the club are going from strength to strength. But
I like how they've kept like the soul of the club as well, haven't they? Like because
yeah,
when you move stadium and money comes in and stuff, but even like people like Peter Gillam that's been there since like we first started, and I even went to when I was at the stadium, the woman that used to do our college work was still like in the foundation, and they really like look after former players and still get them involved. And yeah, they've definitely kept like the community and the soul of the club as well.
Yeah, they have. And I think that's one of Brentford's kind of sort of key points that's made them be successful. I think that they're within the club, they understand where they want to go, but they understand where they've come from also. So it keeps everyone on their toes. Like there's never a thing of looking to become complacent. It's about how can we keep moving forward, but in a way that's going to be sustainable. It's not about like let's just go and throw loads of money at it. We'll get up and everything will be fine. It's no, look, this is going to be a process. It's going to take us time, and that's fine. But we're going to keep building brick by brick to make sure the foundations are strong.
Well, it's that keyword identity, isn't it? And actually, there's a really important element that goes to the women's team, which obviously you have so much experience of. Is there's Roger Crook and his daughter Amy. Before Brentford Women was associated with the main football club, Roger and Amy were running it back then, and they're still running it now. And every time I've met both of them, my heart just swells because they're Brentford through and through, and particularly Brentford Women as well. And there's some things I still want to go back to actually with your playing career, but I want to talk a little bit about that. So you were a club legend at Brentford. You played for a lot of clubs after you left them, but they were the club that's in your heart. 185 games for that club. Part of the team that won League Two. Not quite part of the team that went back up to the Championship, but you were welcomed with open arms. And what you walked into was not a WSL club where these are top players. You were walking into a semi-talented group of amateur girls at that stage. And was it? I think you've had 2 promotions in your 7 years. Is it 2 or 3? You've had a lot of promotions.
Yeah, 2 promotions and 3 cup wins, 4 cup wins. It's bad. I'm forgetting. I think it's 4 cup wins. Yeah.
But you were walking into it was proper grassroots football club, but it had the Brentford badge. So, I mean, that was one hell of a challenge for you and Roger and Amy and everyone else associated with the club. But where you're getting to now and where you've left them is remarkable. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I was coming towards the end, and one of my friends, and you'll know him, Fraser, Ryan Peters. He was actually managing them before, and he asked me to come in and help while I was still playing, and I was back local. So I was like, yeah, cool, no problems. And my wife actually played for Brentford. We ended up meeting at Brentford and stuff like that. So she went back to play, and I was helping Ryan out. Then I moved away again for football. And then when I came back again, wanted to coach, was interested in coach, and I felt like sort of Brentford Women's was in a need of ultimately progressing and moving forward. Amy and Roger had done an amazing job in how they were looking after it, and the time and effort and energy that they'd put into it was honestly unreal. It was amazing. Like genuinely, they care so much about Brentford Women's, and they've had a huge impact in so many people because of it. But I felt like I could add something. It also allowed me to coach, and it also was a bit different. I've got two daughters, so for me, I was like, no, do you know what? If my daughters want to play football, which is completely up to them, I want them to be able to go and experience something where they feel people care, it's taken seriously, and also there's a want to get people to progress. I just felt very much that when girls are introduced to football, people are just happy that they're just playing. But when boys are introduced for football, it's like, right, we need to get better, we need to progress, you need to go and earn a contract. Like there's a completely different level of expectation, and I don't feel that because women are playing football, they should have any less expectation. Do we manage the pressure in the right way? That's something that we need to make sure we do. But the expectation of wanting someone to get better and wanting someone to improve and progress shouldn't be any less. So I went in there, obviously kind of trying to get to know it. And as I said, I'd come straight out of men's football into the women's game at an amateur level. It was very much a completely different world. We trained one evening a week on an estate where the pitch wasn't even, I don't even think it was actually anywhere near regulation size. The 18-yard box stopped at one point, and then 2 steps after was the throw-in line. So it definitely wasn't regulation size. And then we'd kind of get kit, and that was really it. It was like playing in the park, really. And I was like, there's so much more here. And then we kind of ended up now going through the journey where we've got a couple of promotions. We've become a club that wins. We're not just a kind of a club that just has players because they're just enjoying it and just want to play. Like, yes, they have all of that, but actually, we want to get better. We want to improve. We want every player to progress. We want every person to progress and develop. And that's the key thing. It's all about people development before player development ultimately, because the player development then happens more natural. And now we're training sort of 3 times a week. We've got SNC staff. We've got obviously we've got a couple of physios. We've got sports psychologists. We've got a running coach. We've got all sorts, because we wanted to create an environment that allows people to come in and improve maybe all elements of what they need and have that support base and structure. So it's an amazing thing, and Brentford have been fully behind pushing that. One of the biggest things that kind of we said at the beginning, and what was important for me, was that we did it in a sustainable way. It could have been easy for us to just try and skip it and go a few leagues up. I just didn't think that would be right. I think people should be part of the journey and part of the story. And Brentford believed in that as well. So that's kind of what we've done in the way that we've grown it year upon year, and it's getting stronger and stronger each year. It's getting better and better. And I'm kind of looking forward now, being a bit outside of it and stepping away from it, to seeing the growth go again, because I'm really confident that the people in charge and the people that are going to take it over will go and do a really good job.
And they're now you've left them in the top, I think now the top regional league. So they're one step away from what will be, I think, called the National League South. If they get promoted, they'll then be in the National League South.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Championship, then you've got the WSL. So effectively a League Two team as you left them, but you took them on as a Southern League team.
Yeah, ultimately, yeah. So they're kind of one away from the Women's National League, which then it starts to develop into sort of semi-pro and pro. But it's been a very challenging journey. Like, we have to remember, these players work all day, they then train late in the evening, give up their Sundays and stuff like that, just because they love the game. Yes, we've turned the program into something that's supportive and progressive, but it takes a lot of commitment, and we've put a lot of demand on them. They've been brilliant in the way that they've grown the club and have moved it forward. So that's kind of been a really special journey. When I decided I was going to step down and inform the club and stuff, the club was super supportive of me, and it was a really kind of nice send off. But because of that, I've made sort of friends for life. You know, these girls are really good people, and I can't thank them enough, because ultimately working with them has made me better. And I hope that they feel sort of the same for them, that, you know, working with myself and the staff that we've had has also made them better.
Well, I'm pretty certain that is the case. So you mentioned your wonderful wife Amanda, and she's such a key part of your professional as well as your personal journey. And actually, one thing I wanted to touch on is, so after you left Brentford playing wise, you went
Mm-hmm.
all over the world. Well,
Yes,
all over the U. Sorry,
all over the UK.
all
I
over the
wish I went all
UK.
over the world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know what I said the world, but there we go. Maybe I'm still in the Beyonce sense of mind. You went to the places like Bristol, Plymouth, Kilmarnock. Those are not places that are easy to just up sticks and go to. So I guess my question is a few things. Practically, did I think that was before the girls were born, but you had your son who's
Yeah,
I've only seen pictures of him. He looks about 18, 19 to me, but who knows?
17. Yeah,
He's 17. There we go. Um, did she up sticks and come with you, or
yeah, she did.
that's
Yeah,
one hell of a thing to ask someone to do, isn't it? Right. Okay, we live in Brentford at the moment. Now we're going to be in Bristol or Plymouth or
yeah.
Scotland.
Yeah, so when I moved, so I moved to Mill, but I moved to the other side of London ultimately. We'd only been together for a year. Um, and she's from Brentford, like grown up in Brentford. Her whole family lineage is from Brentford, generation after generation. So asking her to kind of move to, again, it sounds crazy. It's just the other side of London, right? But we know what London can be like in terms of traffic and travel. Um, was a big thing, and I wasn't sure whether that would be something she wanted to do, but she did. And she's been everywhere with me, and I can't thank her enough, because I don't think I would have been the same person had I not had my family with me. They're extremely important to me, like my kids, my daughter, and even little things like, so my son's from a previous relationship, and even helping navigate being able to see my son regularly, and him coming to games and being looked after and supported, and their relationship now is amazing. You know, the kind of relationship they've built, which is incredible. But I think, yeah, without kind of her support, and her being there through my career, I'm not sure it would have been as fruitful as maybe it has been.
Yeah. The understanding of look, this is what it's like if you marry a footballer.
Yeah,
And I think there will be a lot of people that don't even think of that. And I know that a lot of fans don't think about it. I'd say for my sins, a Gillingham fan, like when we're looking at signing players from here, there, and everywhere, we don't think about, well, what decisions is it they've got? Because you've got to go underneath London, like getting and uplifting a family and putting them in Kent ain't easy, because it's not easy to get to Gillingham from anywhere else. And even at the level that you were playing at, and
yeah,
please don't take that as patronising, it's an incredible level. But I don't think that fans think of you as human beings with lives and families and other considerations like that. And actually, and I think about that in light of what's happening with Trent Alexander-Arnold going from Liverpool to Real Madrid, and all the awful vitriol that's been levelled at him by Liverpool fans. And look, I do understand you support one football club and one football club only. It's disappointing when you lose a talented young boy that's come through your academy and the club don't get a transfer fee. Well, look, I won't lose any sleep over Liverpool not getting a transfer fee. They can afford to buy someone for, I mean, they're about to buy Florian Wirtz for 150 million. But what you've got there is a lad who's living a life, and you only get one go at it. And yeah, he is the local boy that's lived his dream. And isn't it amazing? And wouldn't we all have loved to have done that? But it's his life, and he's allowed to lead it in the way he is. And most of us would make the decision that he had made. It's the best for him, for his family. He's obviously just released this video of him speaking incredible Spanish. I don't know if you've seen it. It is unbelievable.
yeah,
And he wants to better himself. And I don't know what it is about. I don't know whether it's particularly a British culture thing, but it's like we cannot understand other people's decisions, and the fact that how dare they go and better themselves or make the best decisions for themselves. It's football fans don't understand the decisions that football players have to make, and I don't know how frustrating you find that and found that during your career, of the fact that you were seen as a bollard on a football pitch rather than a human being.
yeah. I definitely struggled with it at times, because I'm a person that likes to see other people win as well. So if a player moved or whatever, like for me, I'm like, that's great. They're going to bet themselves. That's what I want to see. But I agree with you. I don't think um, as as humans that we support that enough, and that lack of understanding. I think money masks a lot of stuff. Like everyone assumes that you should just be happy because you're earning a load of money. Like money's great, money makes things a bit easier, maybe, but ultimately it doesn't just make you happy. Like that's not how it works. And he's having an opportunity to go and experience something that's going to enrich his life. He's going to go and live in a different country, play at a different team, meet different people, play in a different way and a style. It's going to go and enrich his life. And I don't think we should begrudge anyone that. But you get that in football. People don't think about some of the decisions you have to make. So, for me, when I was making decisions, I had to take into consideration leaving my son in London because he didn't live with me, and the impact that's going to have on him, and the impact that's going to have on me not seeing him. I go from seeing him every day to seeing him just in the school holidays. Like it was horrible. And even when I moved to Bristol, I would drive down so every time any game I was at home, I would drive down sort of every Friday after training, drive to London, pick him up from school, and then drive straight back to Bristol to go and play on the Saturday. And again, that's my choice, right? But those are sacrifices that sometimes we have to make in order to try and make things work, and do the best we can. But those are also things that fans don't necessarily see or understand. And they forget the human element because we are just humans. Yes, we play football and it's, one of the greatest sports in the world and we love it. But also, we also have other things outside of that too.
What were your when did you start thinking about life beyond football? Because it's like even in I remember in my mid-20s doing my B license, and it was like a thought of what am I going to do after this, and a panic. But it was like,
oh yeah,
I'll worry about that next year. And I think a lot of players put it off. I screenshotted Matt yesterday, a message from a friend of mine who's just retiring this summer, and just an unbelievable mentality. Like he's been in the game since he was 17, played in the Prem, played at every level, and now he's 37 coming to an end. And it's like, I still don't know the best way for people to prepare, because even like with him and his mentality, his mindset, it's like it's a struggle. Like it's a real difficult transition. When did you start thinking about things properly?
I think similar to you. So I was always aware of it, especially as the career starts to reverse. Like, that's when you then start to think, I need to get. But mine was because mine reversed at like 28-ish. It started to go the other way, 29-ish.
Never heard it put that way. Career reversing.
Yeah, it feels like, because obviously I suppose it's different for us because we started lower. So you're always looking to get higher, right? If you start in the Prem, I suppose you're at the top, so it's a bit different. But it then sort of, obviously I had my playing career was moving up the leagues, done really well, and then it starts to go the other way and reverse. Injuries start to creep in more, not playing as much, coming back down the leagues, stuff like that. And I remember feeling like, right, if this season though I get it right, I can get myself kind of back into League One again. And then if I have a really good season at League One for a couple of years, I could probably get back in the champ or maybe get a promotion with the champ. And then you start the season and it's not going the way that you think. And I'd finished at Grimsby, and it was like, do I hang out and wait around, hopefully stay in the league, or do I drop to non-league? And I went to Aldershot and started at Aldershot. I worked really hard in pre-season. Like, I really wanted to give myself the best chance of just doing really well for the club. I was with a manager that I knew would look after me. I knew I would play as long as I was fit, and I couldn't get myself fit. I had an injury in pre-season, and after that, the body was just breaking down every time. Ended up playing sort of 2-3 games. I really struggled mentally with that as well, because I went in there as captain with huge expectations of really helping the team sort of get promotion out of the National League, but couldn't even get myself on the pitch. Felt a bit of a fraud, if I'm honest. Because, and you'll probably know this as well, Fraser, when you're in a bit of a leadership position in football and in the changing room, and people kind of expect that from you, if you're not able to deliver it on the pitch, it feels like there's no value. I didn't feel like I had any true value because I'm not able to be out there battling, leading, fighting for the team and for the club. And And the manager had a conversation with me and said, "Look, I need to ask you a question." I'm like, "Yeah, go ahead." And he said, "Do you think that it's maybe time that you start having to think about what happens next? Because I can see this is breaking you. But do you want to be the person that continues to batter their body and then ends up being sort of 35, 36, can't move, can't walk, can't go and play with his kids, all of those types of things?" And that forced me to think. The only issue was, at that time I was thinking, that was a week later, 2 weeks later, I'd left the club and was basically deciding to retire. So I'd avoided thinking about it for years. And it wasn't until after that I'd realized I'd avoided thinking about it. I probably knew at 27 that the body was breaking down. I'd had a fair few different injuries. I had a big injury at AFC Wimbledon. I'd struggled to get back. My games tally was really low at clubs. Was then just kind of at a club for a year or 6 months and then moving on. So I'd avoided that thinking about it for ages. And then it was like, bang, I'm actually here. Didn't know what to do. Naturally, I went into coaching because I was like, well, I've just played football. Coaching is what I've got to do. Started my own football academy with one of my mates, and I've kind of been on the process the last 7 years of actually trying to create who I am. At first, it was thinking I needed to find who I was. Became an agent, done that, which I enjoyed being an agent, but it wasn't fulfilling what I needed. But the biggest bit of advice I could give to any footballer is, from the moment that you start playing and sort of sign your pro, it's not so much thinking about what a plan B is, but more about preparing and understanding that there's a life after football that's longer than the life you have playing football. And do the best you can to make sure that you can transition out of football in a smoother way. And ultimately, if you're able to have your football career as well as build something on the outside, or prepare in whatever way you need to have something on the outside, then actually it's a much more comfortable place than getting to retirement and having to figure it all out.
Well, use that Trent example is a really interesting one. He's one that people look at from the outside and saying, "What's he off doing that? What's he going to do this? What's he doing that? Why is he learning Spanish?" It's one thing I would say to a lot of young kids is, if you aim for the top, Fraser, you say sort of aim for the top, try and want to win the Ballon d'Or and all of that. So if that's the case, well, I don't understand why every young footballer doesn't learn Spanish, French, German, Italian. Just choose one and learn it. Because if you make it as a footballer, wow, that's going to help you out when you're under your unveiling at Real Madrid. If you don't make it as a footballer, you can speak Spanish. It's unbelievable. What an achievement. I mean, it's just one of them of many examples of it. And in fact, our previous episode that will have gone out just before this one, we spoke to a lad who, and I hate this phrase, didn't make it. Like he played, he was a pro at Leicester for a year, then he largely went and played a really good standard non-league football. But after about 3 ACL operations, he found he loved DJing. Um, and I think he really reflects on the fact, I wish I'd have found out I loved DJing when I was 17. Because talk about take you away from the madness and the pressure and everything else, to just sit in your room and create something. What a brilliant thing to do for your mental health. And then he would have had years more experience when he actually can't play football anymore, and he makes another life for himself. And as you said, it is the longest period of your life post-retirement from playing, because you were 31, 32, which is obviously quite young. Fraser, you were 28. If you're very lucky, you get to retire at 35. And you look at any industry awards in any other industry, you kind of win a young professional of the year at the age of 35. This upcoming young person in our industry, aren't they doing well? And like football regards that as an old man.
It does, to be fair, because like 35 is pension age in football. You get your pension at 35. And it's interesting because like the era that I came through and Fraser came through, there was very much like, you just focus on football, like don't dare focus on anything else. And if you focused on something else, you were distracted and you then wasn't good enough to play. I don't know if you felt that phrase when you was coming through as well, but that's what it felt like. It was never about sort of bettering yourself. And I think that's what we're starting to get an understanding of. Actually, if we just look after the person better, if we help the person develop, then the football development actually becomes easier
Mm.
and becomes more manageable. And I think we're starting to get there. I think we've got
Mm.
a hell of a long way to go, but I think there's elements that we're starting to get there. And I think that's why people like myself and Fraser end up going into sort of mindset coaching and performance coaching, because one, we've lived it. Two, we understand that what sacrifice it takes to kind of have a career and do it, regardless of what level you play at. But also we want to give back. Like, we care about people and people being better and becoming better, which also indirectly, in a selfish way, forces us to have to be better. Because
Mm.
otherwise, you get found out. Like,
Mm.
if me and Fraser are speaking to people about having a certain type of mindset, and then we're not really doing it ourselves or living it ourselves, or every time there's a challenge, we're falling by the wayside and crumble, they're going to be like, well, what's the point? That doesn't really make sense, right? So it forces us to have to keep growing, have to keep getting better. And I think that's something that's important. I'm passionate about personal development. Um, I believe that we can be whatever we want to be. We can achieve some of the greatest things, but it takes work, it takes sacrifice, it takes a willingness to take accountability, be vulnerable with yourself and with others. But also it takes courage. And all of those things we needed in football, all of those things we learned in football.
With the transition from playing any kind of sport to beyond
Yeah.
it, for me, there was never any excitement about what was to come after football. It was, and when I speak to a lot of people, it's like it's just you finish your career and then you kind of a lot of people see it as like you kind of bobble along. Like unless you go
Yeah.
into management, I think people look at that, but people it's like you're 35, like as Matt said, in any other industry, you're so young. But it's
Yeah.
almost like our best days are done. That's how I
Yeah.
kind of saw it. And when I speak to my partner now, who's so switched on with everything, but like psychology and so many different things. But her life and building something, there was a picture of what she wanted her life to look like at 40,
Mm.
50, 60. For
Yeah.
me, I never looked any further than my playing career. It was like, this is all I want to do is do this. And then I don't know, I'll kind of figure out what comes next. But I do think you can create, I think we look at it as kind of doom and gloom, but if players are exposed properly, you can look at it and go, this is an amazing phase of your life, but look what you can do next and look what you can
Yeah.
do at 35. And I think you'd probably then get a lot of players that, you're always told, hang on and play as long as you can. But I see that kill people. And it's only because they're so worried about stepping away from it and doing something different. It's like, I'll drag my family to this part of the world and see if I can get another year. And my knees struggling, but I'll push through this. And
Yeah.
I think if we get the education piece right and frame it differently, you can get people that almost look with a bit of excitement to the end of a career and the start of a new
You've
one.
got guilt as well, haven't you? That element of you're doing the thing that you always wanted to do and so many people want to do. How dare you throw that away? And I look
Yeah.
at some of our top players now. I think we are now at a stage of football and certainly the money that's made at the top of the game where I look at, for example, Raheem Sterling and that I absolutely love. What a servant he was to England, what a great career he's had. If you looked at it reflectively and objectively, brilliant. And he's similar to Michael Owen in that respect as well. People are now looking at him like he's a joke.
Yeah.
He's not a joke, not by any stretch of the imagination. And what a footballer, what a great young man. And
That
Raheem must be 28 now. And I can't see that Raheem's going to drop down to the Championship if he's not wanted in the Premier League. I would hope he'll get a Premier League contract or a contract abroad somewhere. So it's either you go somewhere where you can disappear like America or Saudi or whatever else. Will he retire? And I really hope he doesn't. I really hope he doesn't.
that that
But
part
that
you
will
say there,
happen.
Matt, about there is a guilt in, or there shouldn't be, but you are almost made to feel guilty. And I looked at England playing the other night. They played Senegal. They've just had every one of them players has just played about 60 games.
Yeah.
They've been away last week. They've got a week off on holiday, and then they're back in a camp playing games that don't really matter,
No.
but they're playing for their country. And they're all there at that camp thinking it's almost like a tick box game. It's like, right, we've got to come here, we'll play this game, and then we can have a bit of a break. And they won't want to be there. A lot of them won't want to be there. Maybe if it's their first camp or something, I think Trevor Chalobah will probably be looking, going, like, I'm desperate to be here. But you've got players that have played 80 times for England that are playing in a friendly at Nottingham Forest. They're thinking, I don't want to do this. I'd rather be on holiday. I'd rather be having a break. But you get people from the outside going, how can they possibly think like that? And it's the same with players that aren't enjoying being a footballer. They might be earning hundreds of thousands a week in the Premier League, but they're not enjoying it and they don't like going in every day. But if they come out and say to somebody, I'm struggling or I'm not enjoying this, all they'll get is, God, everyone will give their right arm to be in your position, and you want to
Yeah,
see what real problems are like, and
Yeah.
it's like all that. So it's probably why, a lot of these, players feel like they probably feel a bit of guilt or probably question themselves, like, why ain't I enjoying this? Or why don't I want to be wearing this England kit on a Wednesday night? It's a funny one that happens in football because everyone's got an opinion on it, I think.
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. And it's the sport where everybody's an expert. Like
Yeah.
everybody's an expert at it. Everybody knows what formation to play. Everybody knows how to play through the press and whatever else. Like it's one of those where it's difficult because of that. But I think Fraser makes some really good points. The amount of times I've heard someone say, because there was actually a time in my career where I was actually thinking um, about possibly giving it up because I wasn't in a good place, wasn't enjoying it at all. Um, and I remember I spoke to a few people about it, and it was like, oh, everyone wants to do what you're doing. Like, how can you do that? Like, it was like the fact that I was even thinking about it was an absolute disgrace.
Mm.
Unfortunately, it kept me going, and I got myself back to where I wanted to be. But the pressure that you have of living everybody else's dream, um, it can be extremely difficult sometimes. And Fraser's right; like these players are probably mentally exhausted. Like they've had 60 games for the season. They've had to be extremely dedicated, disciplined in all they do every single day. Um, and then they got a week off and they're back to it again. Like most people get a chance to shut their mind down. Like as a player, you can't. Like it doesn't happen. And as I said, people use money as a way of saying, well, I earn so much money, there should be no worries. And people talk about real problems, and I'm like, what are real problems? A problem is defined by the person who actually has it.
Mm.
So you can't define what somebody else's real problem is, and no one actually knows what's really going on in people's lives either. Yes, they may be out on the pitch and it might be playing with a smile, and Fraser's probably done the same. We've done that many times, but inside we might not be smiling. There's other stuff going on outside. We're going through other difficult times, other life things. So um, I hope one day we get to a place where people are slightly more understanding.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure we will.
Well, I wanted to actually I mentioned there's quite a few really fun comparisons between your two careers of things you experienced are really similar. I'm going to bring one back in and talk about people not understanding. You both played in a huge televised game where I'm not sure whether it was a mistake you made, Karleigh, that resulted in it, but you lost the Football League Trophy final with Brentford against Carlisle, and
Yeah,
the winner was scored by the striker that you were marking.
yeah,
And Fraser, you played live on BT Sport when Luton needed to beat, I think it was Braintree Town. They expected to roll them over. And I think you might have even did you get hauled off for a couple of mistakes that
Uh,
you made?
no, I wish I'd have done.
Oh yeah, but
Not my
John still
game.
gave you a kind
Yeah.
of called you out on the
Yeah.
post-match interview while you were sat there slumped on the floor. Um, and those are the times. This is a weird thing. This is going to sound pathetic. So I'm 46 and I play veterans football on a Sunday night. I get in the car and actually start thinking, oh, I don't want to go because I'm like, oh, if I mess up, I let my teammates down and we'll lose. And the standard's quite good for me. So I actually start getting nervous. I think I don't want to do this. And then when I finish the game, I've loved it. So and the reason I make that analogy is no one gives a shit. There's no one even watching, let alone it that being important. The idea of stepping on the pitch in front of 500 people in a non-league game for me, I think bloody hell, what a mentality you need for that. The idea of stepping on a pitch, and I don't know how many were at Wembley that day, Karleigh, but a hell of a lot of people. The idea of stepping on the pitch when BT Sport are filming it, that's a very, very, very tough thing to do. And then when it goes in inverted commas wrong, how do you cope with
yeah.
it? And how did you feel after that Wembley game?
Um, I felt horrific. To be fair, felt horrendous. Like felt like I'd let thousands of people down. First trip to Wembley for a long time. I think there was like 24 or 25,000 Brentford fans there. Probably similar in terms of Carlisle fans. And we lost. I think we lost the game 1-0 by me. Yeah, I'm sure we lost the game 1-0, and it was only my man that scored from a corner. Who, to be fair, he had the best weekend of his life, though. I think he had like a newborn child born on like the Friday, and then played on the Sunday. I think it was played on the Sunday. Scored the winner for Carlisle to go and win the trophy. So, which was amazing for him. But the polar opposite for me, where it was just wanted to kind of hide, didn't want to be seen. As I said, felt like I'd let the group down, let the team down. I remember when it happened. Like when things like that happen, especially, and that was my first ever time at Wembley, so that was my first experience of it. And I just remember thinking to myself for probably about 20 seconds, you've got it wrong. How can you do this to the club? How can you do this to your team? You've let them down. At one moment, you didn't concentrate, and I probably hammered myself for 20 seconds while everyone's sort of getting the ball out the net and people are walking back to their space and whatnot. And then the ball's put on the centre circle, the whistle goes, and then straight away I got to flip back into, right, next thing you do is got to be positive. Go and get the ball. Go and win your first header. And it's like, that's the bit that people don't necessarily see or understand, in how difficult and how hard it can be to switch your mindset from a negative place where you're hammering yourself because you feel like you've done wrong and you've let people down, to then having to still go out and actually perform without trying to make it worse. And that's a really tough place to be.
That's the courage part, isn't it? It's like the easy thing then to do is is to hide.
Yeah.
And we've all done it as well. Like when I was younger, going and training with the first team at Brentford, you give a ball away in a keep ball and you get hammered. It's like, right, I'm gonna go miss it for the next 10 minutes. I'm hiding. Don't give me the ball.
Yeah.
But that's bravery, and that's what separates people. But that point is really interesting what you make as well. It's like in football or in any sport, like your worst moment is someone else's absolute, like that's the best day of that guy's life. And even in that game that Matt was talking about me, like worst game of my career by a long way. But two players that scored for Braintree were two teammates of mine that I used to play one and went on to play with the other one. And they talk about that as their big moment. Like it was underdog story. They both scored on TV. They both got moves off the back of it. And it's like it is that all round, your Steven Gerrard's slip that people talk about is someone else's like moment that they're remembered for. It is the thing, isn't it? About it's the highs and lows, but the beauty of why we love sport, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly that. It is the beauty of why we love sport. It's difficult, it's tough, but it's what creates moments and memories. And likewise, we've had amazing things happen. I've won promotions and won trophies, and that's been someone else's sort of worst day. I happened to be at AFC Wimbledon. We got promoted with AFC Wimbledon through the playoffs, lost to Plymouth. I then went and signed for Plymouth straight after that. So, it's difficult. And again, now, like even when I'm sitting here, I've got the Wembley champagne bottle that's signed by all the boys just sitting on the table here, and I get to look at that, and straight away I'm like, I remember that day, like what a day that was. But for someone else seeing that bottle, that's their worst. That's the worst thing they could see, because that reminds them of what they missed out on.
What's next then? What are you excited about now?
I'm excited about sort of building my mindset, performance coaching business, and keynote speaking alongside my academy, and then continuing. I'm staying at work. I'm staying at Brentford. I'm going into a different role. I can't say what role that is at this moment in time, but I'm looking forward to that as well. And ultimately, for me, the biggest thing is I finally feel like I realized that actually life didn't finish when I stopped playing. And now I have an opportunity to really create the life that I want from all the lessons that I've learned. But also I can give back to people in a different way and help people because of the experience that I've gained being in the profession that I've been in, and then what I've done up until this point now. It's taken me a long time. Like I retired at 31, 6 years ago, 37 now, 38 in next March. But it's taken me a long time to kind of get to this point of understanding who I am what I want to do and what I actually want from life. And that's been some brilliant highs on the way, but it's been some lows, some really tough lows as well, just trying to figure life out. I think sometimes we forget how difficult it is to figure life out sometimes. And that identity crisis, that finishing football and not knowing who I am, where I'm supposed to sit in the world, where I'm supposed to sit in society, is a tough journey. But I'm now at a place where I understand who I am, the skill sets I have, and where I can constantly keep growing and improving, and ultimately helping people.
It's the key to life, you know, is that to learn and to grow. We all make mistakes all the way through our lives. And there's a video that Fraser and I shared with each other the other day of Craig Bellamy speaking. And Craig Bellamy made some really poor decisions as a young man on a number of occasions. But the way he was talking now, the kind of reflection that he has, the understanding on life, and he talked about, you know, just enjoy it, just enjoy life. And I think one of the real frustrations I have with young men, and I look at myself as a young man, is to just hear these voices and understand them. Because if I knew what is it? It's a Rod Stewart line, isn't it? I wish I knew what I knew now when I was younger. I really, I mean, it's just such an obvious thing to say, but bloody hell, I really wish I did. So many things that I'd get so upset and worked up about that really, really don't matter. You get one go at this life, enjoy every minute, and then the real irony is the people that have really got it made are 6, 7, 8 year olds because we haven't had all the self doubt and all the shit that comes knocked out of us. If we could just get rid of those teenage years where it all gets knocked out of us, we'd probably be all right. But unfortunately, we can't. Life's a tapestry, and it's all about learning and growing. So look, Karleigh, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We wanted to have this chat, and it's been so nice seeing you and Fraser talking together. I'm sorry about doing you dirty at the beginning, Fraser. You went on to have a brilliant career with lots of other clubs, and but yeah, other than that, thank you, Karleigh, for being on.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Really enjoyed the conversation today. Thank you, Matt. Love what you're doing. Love the work that you're doing. Fraser, keep doing what you're doing, mate. I think what you're doing is incredible. You're having a big impact on so many people, myself included. And I think you should be proud of all that you've done on your journey so far. And I look forward to watching the rest of it too.
Thank you, mate.
Amazing. Well, I'm very proud of him too. So brilliant.